There we go. Okay. So hello, Yvonne. Hi. Thanks for agreeing to join me for this conversation to share your experience of progressing from leader to coach. As now you are a leadership coach and the founder of Cornerstone Coaching. So if I can I start by just asking you to tell us a little bit about yourself and what led you to that, that transition to becoming a coach?
Sure. So just let me say, first of all, thank you so much for having me on. I am super excited to chat with you. My journey started off from, I suppose, my upbringing. So I came from a very traditional Asian family in terms of the values that they upheld. So I grew up in Australia as a first generation Asian. And so it was very much instilled into me at a young age that I should get good grades and be high achieving, and that way I'll go to university, get a good job, get good money, that sort of thing. And so that was always instilled into me, and I did that, but it was something that I didn't enjoy, the field that I ended up in at that sort of like after university. And at the time I didn't know what coaching was or anything like that, so I just went along with it, and I developed the usual sorts of doubts about myself, questioning my life choices, having the imposter syndrome take over. So all those things happened, and of course in hindsight, when I look back, I know it was because I hadn't found my purpose, like what I really wanted to do, and also I didn't know sort of like where I wanted to be. Like I'd sort of go from job to job, and kind of like I was running away, but I didn't know what I was running to. So I'd end up sort of back at the beginning all over again. So eventually I started working in higher education, which I actually liked. And I became interested in women and their leadership journeys, and just, hearing about their experiences and just learning from them. And at one of my previous workplaces, I did a women in leadership program. And it was just like breadcrumbs really that led me towards becoming a coach. So I did a leadership program. I did other sort of leadership training. And even one time the facilitator suggested I should become a coach. And I thought, okay, that's nice. But I didn't know what a coach was at the time. So I just was taking the compliment and moving along. And I also saw an influencer on Instagram. I don't know if you know her. Her name's Lydia Millen, and she said that somebody changed her life. She shared a post about how someone changed her life, and I thought, who could this person be? And it turned out to be a life coach. So I think like all these little breadcrumbs led to me exploring coaching, learning more about it, and eventually training in it. Alongside neuro-linguistic programming, which I know you know all about too, Rachel. So yeah, and because of my experiences in higher education and working with women, I just became passionate about helping other women who were in leadership roles to overcome their self-doubts and imposter syndrome, so that they can actually do the best job they can within their roles and their organizations.
Okay, well, thank you for that. Yeah, it's amazing. But I love the story of breadcrumbs. I just have that visual leading you along the way. Okay, so just you mentioned leaders and you mentioned leadership roles and things like that. So can I just ask then, what do you mean by that term leader?
I'm really glad you asked that question, because I think traditionally, from what I've seen, people define leaders as CEOs, C-suite, that kind of realm. But to me, a leader is someone who's tasked with leading, and that's how simple it is. So it could be anybody. The title doesn't matter really. It's more what they're doing, which is leading. So it could be like a team leader, a supervisor, a manager, coordinator, CEO, anybody like that who has the job to lead others towards a common goal, I would classify as a leader. And imposter syndrome does affect people at all levels of leadership and non-leadership. So, it's not like it can be kind of pigeonholed into CEOs having imposter syndrome. So yeah, I think leadership is quite a broad term, and yeah, it would apply to anybody who has the job of leading.
Okay, so thank you for that. So you just touched on there, imposter syndrome as being a challenge of leaders and non-leaders. So I'm going to ask you, what were the challenges that you faced as a leader?
Yes, I think there were several. So firstly, I felt like, oh, I don't deserve this. I'm not good enough for this. Because I didn't have the prior experience of leading, even though everyone has to start from somewhere. I just felt like, oh, I don't have enough training. I need more of this, that, I need this support. So I struggled with that at the beginning. I also struggled with having the confidence to speak up in meetings, and also have those difficult conversations you sometimes have to have, whether it's with your own team or having to negotiate and influence in conversations. So I struggled with that as well, and also just managing the whole leader versus friend situation. So especially when you're promoted from within the team, which I've had done a couple of times, you suddenly go from being a peer or colleague and even friend to somebody who has that kind of you're in a slightly more powerful position in that sense, and the dynamics change. And for me, I struggled because I wanted to be the nice guy, but also I knew that I needed to make sure that the job was getting done, and sometimes like having to set the agenda and set expectations and things like that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so from that then, how has your experience of being a leader influenced how you coach now then?
So I know that, so my coach trainer has said before that you don't necessarily need to know everything about a client's industry or background to be able to coach them. And I think that does ring true. But I also think that having that background knowledge and understanding their context and just the way that the sector works does help you to coach them as well, because you understand where they're coming from, and that means you can establish that rapport and share that empathy more easily. And you can work together, ask the right questions to get them to open up and unlock their own potential and find their way towards their goal. So I think having some sort of knowledge of the leadership space has helped me to help my clients get there faster and on the right track. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely does. I was just reflecting.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if that made sense there. Yeah.
No, you did, absolutely. Yeah. And it is interesting, isn't it, that we know that coaching can be done content free to some extent, but it's even more effective if we are sort of privy to that content. It does allow us to make that the next question even more relevant and powerful for the client. Yeah. So no, it did make sense. I was reflecting. Apologies for the silence there. Okay, so a similar question to one previous then, sort of on a bigger sort of scale, I suppose. But so what are the key learnings that you would say that you've taken from your career as a whole?
Oh, yeah. Gosh. Firstly, I'd say, I knew from the very beginning that I wasn't in the right career because it was just so against what I wanted to do. I just didn't enjoy it at all. And so I'd say, if your gut is telling you something, then trust it. But also use your brain at the same time. So trust your gut, but don't go off, riding into the sunset straight up. Know that something's not right, and then look for what it is that you do want and, that serves your purpose, and work on that. it's so important to know what you want rather than what you don't want, because you already know what you don't want. But if you continue to run from what you don't want without knowing what you want, then you're never going to get anywhere. You'll just sort of like run around in circles and end up back where you were, which is what I did. I sort of like found different jobs, but they were all the same sort of jobs. So it was like, well, in hindsight, that was dumb. But that's why, work on what it is you want, and coaches and mentors can help with that as well. And then work towards that. And that I'd say they're my key learnings, because I think that if I had understood that at the time, I wouldn't have wasted so much energy, fretting and looking down different avenues that didn't really sort of mean anything. So when I say trust your gut, know that something's not right, but use your brain to look for what it is that you need to go after.
It's so true. If we don't have a destination in mind, then when a MacBook doesn't really help unless you know where you want to.
Exactly.
No, absolutely.
Totally. And just have patience as well. But which is why the sooner you recognize that something's not right, then just try and take action as soon as possible, but be patient with the process.
Absolutely. And that's where the learning comes in, I think, from recognizing what you don't want, because that's the first step, I suppose, isn't it, to then start looking for what you do want.
Exactly.
Cool. Very good. Okay. So thinking more about your coaching then, if we may, what values have you, and I don't have to explain values to you, so what values have you brought into your coaching then?
I would say honesty is a value that, I think is really important. Because, and it's not always easy, when your client is saying something that, is not serving them, then you have to challenge that, and you have to do that honestly. And I think, I've always been honest, and I value that in others. So I think challenging them in that sense, when they have such really strongly held beliefs, can be challenging. But honesty, you've got to do it to help them. And integrity, so I'm a big believer in showing up and doing what you say you're going to do. And sometimes I'm probably a bit forceful in expecting that from others as well. but that's something that I place great value in. And trust, especially in a client coaching relationship or any type of relationship, it's so important to be able to trust each other. And in a client coaching relationship, as you would know, the client is sharing things with you that they wouldn't necessarily share with anyone else, and they become vulnerable. And so they're trusting you with what they're telling you. So I think, I want to respect that trust and live up to their expectations of that. So trust, integrity, honesty to start with.
No, absolutely. And I think what you were saying there about the trust in that relationship that grows as you through the coaching, that enables that honesty to feel not as maybe brutal as it might sometimes sound if you didn't have that level of trust there, because it's meant as a challenge to be useful, isn't it? And that trust the client has then for you as the coach, looking out for them, for wanting the best for them, believing in them, makes that honesty sort of so much easier to accept and to think about, and just to
because they know that you're supporting them, and what you're saying is for their own benefit because of that trusting relationship you already have. Totally.
Absolutely. So great values then, but not that my opinion is about your okay. So go on then, let's think about the clients then, your coaching clients. So how have you seen your clients benefit? Now this could just be in general, or you might have a specific example. So how would you say that your clients benefit from coaching with you?
So I think a couple of things I've noticed, which I've learned from as well, is how they have insights during a session. So you might challenge them on something, or you might ask them something that they hadn't thought about, and it really is it really is how you experience coaching in a training setting. So when I was being trained as a coach, I'd go through scenarios and the practice sessions, and the clients would answer and have insights along the way as well. And in my business, it's the same sort of thing. They have insights, and it's just like the training that I did. And it's really, really interesting because they're surprised at what they've discovered, but I am as well, but in a good way. Like, it's like a wow moment or an aha moment, and for both of us. And I think often clients think that it's an aha moment just for them. But actually, I think, for me, I can't speak for all coaches, but I feel like, this joyful aha moment when they have that. And and like one client in particular, I think he was one of my very early clients, and at the beginning, he came in and he was very low on confidence, stuck, didn't really know what he wanted to do next or how to get there. And I think, like, I mentioned him because it was so profound, because he was one of my very early clients. So he started off in that way. And then as the sessions went on, you could just literally see from session to session how much more confident he became, and like energized, and he'd actually done work. If he made excuses, then I challenged that, so he was like moving forward. And by, he was actually in the process of setting up his own business as well. And by the end of it, our sessions, he, gained a few clients, but it was incredible to see how he was at the beginning versus how he was at the end. So, it just really shows what an amazing impact that coaching can have on somebody's life.
Yeah, it's I almost feel selfish in my love of coaching. I love it so, because you get to witness those moments.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But I think, if you love it, then you're not selfish at all, because, you're helping these people improve their lives and getting joy from it. I think that's wonderful.
It is wonderful. It is it's a wonderful feeling what you were describing. Then I could just feel it. Okay, thank you then. All right, so moving back into sort of the leadership sort of theme and thinking, a lot of leaders are within big organizations, potentially, or small organizations. And so I'm going to ask you a question about organizations. So what are your thoughts on things like sponsorship, mentoring, and coaching within organizations? Because it can run differently, can't it, from one to one, like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think coaching and mentoring are fantastic and, essential for somebody's progression and development and growth. However, I do believe that sponsorship is what makes the difference in the end, because sponsorship is when somebody in a senior position goes into a room and says, hey, I think such and such would be great for this role that's coming up. So for example, a CEO might say, hey, Rachel would be great for this role in the legal team here for XYZ reason. She's a great communicator, very thorough, and so on. For somebody higher up to say that, they'll be listened to, and people will act on that. You'll get that opportunity, that door is going to open. Whereas with mentoring and coaching, you're really putting the onus on the person receiving the mentoring and coaching to do the work to get that leg up for themselves. Whereas if somebody sponsors them as well, they get through that door more quickly, and, they're able to make a positive contribution to the organization that way as well. I just think there are so many, women in leadership programs out there, and other sort of like leadership development programs, and they're all amazing. But then at the end of it, what happens next? Like they go off and do some coaching and mentoring, they develop themselves, but who at the top is helping them up? So I think, those are my thoughts on it. I think there does need to be more sponsorship in organizations, and I think there's more recognition of that. But at the moment, it seems like the focus is more on mentoring and coaching.
Yes, and I can imagine then if somebody develops themselves and then they don't have the sort of the recognition from the
Mm,
organisation, even if the organisation has sort of arranged the coaching or mentor, then potentially they're going to end up leaving to go somewhere else for another opportunity, aren't they?
exactly. Yes, yes, so true. That employee retention, if they want to keep good
Yeah.
employees, they need to recognize the good ones that are there and give them those opportunities to grow. I mean,
Mm.
I know that there are recruitment processes to follow and all of those sorts of things, but sponsorship, it exists and it can be done. It just opens more doors for these people, and
Mm.
it just means that like there's someone aside from yourself who is looking out for you and your growth, sees
Mm.
potential in you.
Mm. I don't know very much about sponsorship, to be fair, Yvonne. So can I ask another question about that? Just to
Yeah,
is that
I'm
all
no
right?
expert, but I'll give it a go.
No, I'm just wondering because as a coach, obviously we're very much about the individual that we're coaching, aren't we? And like you've said, it's about their own growth and development. So just like sometimes it may come up that one of the actions or options that they generate and they decide to take would be to seek a mentor. So
Mm.
is it possible to also sort of seek sort of a sponsor sort of relationship, do you think, or does it always have to come top down?
Oh, I think that it could go either way,
Ah,
but it would be amazing if organizations made it like everyone aware that sponsorship is an opportunity, like it is something they can pursue. So, there are lots of mentoring programs, lots of coaching programs across organizations, but there aren't really any sponsorship programs that I know of. I could be wrong, but I don't know of them. And, it's more of an informal or kind of something kind of, what's it? Yeah, what's the word I'm looking for?
like a
It's kind of
process.
like a myth almost, like it's like people have heard of it, but maybe they haven't really seen it in practice or experienced it. So I think like it could start from conversations that people have with their own line managers during appraisals or even just one-to-ones, just put the conversation, bring it into conversation and
Mm.
and see if it can be taken further.
Yeah. So what you're saying is even if you don't know that your organization does such a thing as sponsorship, it doesn't mean that it's a no. Unless I suppose we know that's the same with anything, isn't it? We don't know the answer's gonna be unless we ask the question.
Yeah.
So okay, so sorry about that. I was a bit of a
No,
tangent there
no,
with
no,
coaching, but
it's so important. Yeah, great question.
okay. So can I ask then, back into organisations still,
Hmm.
how do you see the landscape sort of changing, if you have seen the landscape changing, within the organisations and their responsibilities to best support their leaders? Have you any
Hmm.
comments on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that a few things I've noticed are that there is definitely more of a more support for coaching and mentoring programs for leaders and aspiring leaders as well. I've seen more and more of those programs throughout like my career, and there's also more conversation, more discussion going on about um, you know, supporting leaders, supporting aspiring leaders, emerging leaders, established leaders, all of those. There's more conversation. People are speaking more openly about it. And for example, I went to the Women in Higher Education Network conference in June, and there was a panel of amazing women who were leaders in their roles, in their sectors, and they were sharing their own experiences and the challenges that they had in getting to where they are now and what opportunities they had. So there's definitely open discussion about it. It's like it's not something to be swept under the carpet or just to be discussed at home behind closed doors anymore. It's something that's out there and open, and I think that's really opening doors and opening up more and more conversations around that.
Mm. Oh, it's the right direction. Well, it's my opinion. Others are available, but
Yeah.
but yeah, no, okay, that's great. Thank you. So what would you say or ask someone who is a leader that may be considering developing as a coach themselves?
So I would say that that's amazing. I'd be curious to know what led them down this path. So what is it that attracts them to becoming a coach? Who is it that they're trying to help? And what's the difference that they're trying to make through being a coach? And also to know that even if you're a coach, you don't necessarily have to go full blown into a business and have that. You could train as a coach and use those skills in your job, in employment. You can do that. There are so many coaching conversations going on in the workplace, and it's a growing thing. It's just, we're moving away from that directive approach to a more collaborative approach, I think, and coaching conversations are contributing to that. And I think you see happier and more empowered employees in that way as well. They're given like more options, they feel supported, and they're developing themselves as well. Like, instead of just always being told what to do, they're now able to think for themselves and come up with different options and approaches to solving challenges, things like that.
So it's not an either or. You don't have to be a leader or a coach. You can actually just integrate your coaching sort of approaches into your leadership approach, and how you lead people in a more collaborative way, like you said, but it sounds like to empower everybody within your team rather than just tell them what to do, like you said, a directive. So
totally. And and like you were saying earlier about employees leaving, I think that when employees feel empowered in that way, they're less likely to leave because they're happier.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, cool. Right. Okay. So now more about you again. That's okay. So how do you balance life and work to maintain your health, well-being and resilience as a leader yourself?
Well, I would say having like a leadership role at work, but also having my business as alongside that is really challenging. I feel the overwhelm and the expectations around both sides. So I think I've really paid attention to how I'm feeling and what I need. So I will actively do things that help me. So if I need to step back, then as hard as it is to let go, I will take a step back, maybe take a day of not actually doing any of the admin that I need to do, something like that. Do you know what I mean? And I make it a point to exercise every morning. I go for my run and I stop at the lake, so I see the ducks and the animals there. So it's just really wholesome. Doing wholesome things makes a huge difference. I meditate and practice gratitude and do breath work every morning as well. So I think that just being able to do those things has made like seriously a big difference to how I start the day and how I respond to situations. Not everything's going to go your way, but it's how you respond that makes a difference. And having done these things for myself, like these self-care practices, has helped me to respond in a more productive way to experiences. And sometimes, I just like to veg in front of TV and watch some Netflix, honestly. I mean, that relaxes me as well. So if you need to do that, then just do it.
Yeah, absolutely. But from the sounds of it there, it's from awareness that you're listening to what you need.
Yeah.
And then from that, you're making a choice about how you're going to spend that time. Netflix, maybe, or maybe the pond walking, whatever. So you're actually taking the time out to sort of top up your resilience a little bit and your own well-being. So then, as you said, one of the few things we have control over is our response to things that happen. So you then feel like you're in a more, you can respond more usefully to whatever happens.
Yeah, absolutely. Otherwise, if you just keep pushing yourself to a point where you burn out, you'd be useless to yourself and to everybody else. And how can you help other people if you haven't helped yourself?
No, absolutely. Yeah,
Mm.
absolutely. Okay, so I like this question. So it's the last one. Would you do anything if you had to do it all again?
Oh, yes. I used to think about this a lot, actually, because I would question my life choices when I was going through my imposter syndrome and, lack of purpose and things like that. I think now in hindsight, I probably wouldn't do anything differently, anything major differently, because it led me to where I am now. And those experiences I've had have educated me and given me insight into how I can help other people. I think, one of the things I probably would do differently is spend less money on clothes and other silly quick fix band-aid fixes, because when I was going through tough times, I would just, and I'm sure people can relate, I would just go fill up my shopping cart online and buy a whole bunch of shoes, or something to just like ease the pain for a bit. And it's sustainable. It's not the real answer, so I think if only I had not spent that much money on those band-aid fixes, but otherwise I think I would just keep things the same as they are now.
That's a great answer. Great answer. Less shoes is what I got from that. Less shoes.
Yes, shoes and clothes and all sorts of bric-a-brac.
Okay, that's been great. It's been great to talk to you, Yvonne. But before we go, can I just ask, where can people get in touch with you if they want to? Where's the best?
So I'm active on LinkedIn. So Yvonne Tajok on LinkedIn, I'm the only one. And my website as well, cornerstonecoaching.co.uk. My contact details are on my website. So yes, do feel free to connect. I would love to hear from you. And thank you so much, Rachel, for chatting to me today. It was a lot of fun.
It has, it's been lovely. So thank you very much. Thank you.